Welcome to the FITnatics. Today I'm here with Jennifer Boubel, who is the president of Capital. Hey Jennifer, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Susie.
We are so excited to speak with you today because we have our topic that is everyone needs to know, but more importantly, we're focusing on women and our relationship with money. So this
Yes.
is part of our three-part Women, Wellness, and Wealth series. Let's get into it, Jennifer. If you don't mind sharing a little bit about your background.
Okay, so I started in real estate investing a few years ago myself, and then as I started learning more, I started realizing how it is a path to wealth and how it can help other people. And so I started working on helping people, helping operators raise money for capital projects. And the more I did that, the more I realized there is a lot of need for financial education. So I expanded my services to include some of the things that I'm finding because I'm a problem solver. I'm an engineer by background, so I'm a problem solver, and I'm a helper. So whenever I see that people need, there's something that I can help with and serve. For me, it's like, hey, this is an opportunity to help others, and then potentially, of course, is to get them on that path to wealth. And so I'm focusing a lot more on the education piece of it, of financial educate, yeah, financial
So
education.
Jennifer, in your experience, with the background in engineering, um, which transitioned to finances, what is the biggest, I guess, characteristic that helped you make that transition?
Well, I was good with numbers, right? So that was an advantage that I had. I love numbers actually. And so when I was actually working on my MBA, I'm not too much, I don't like accounting that much because it's very detail oriented and it's kind of more looking backwards. It's kind of like what in engineering we call like lagging indicators. Finance is more future looking, right? Like, so we're looking at the like pro formas and looking at the future. And so the more I learn about that, the more I kind of got, involved in it. And then I was also working at the time when I was in corporate for a financial services company. So I learned the difference between working as an engineer from a manufacturing facility to now working as an engineer for a financial services company. And it opened my eyes to even, when we talk about wage gap, oh, it's significant, So it opened my eyes to, wow, this is a different world. It's something that I need to, and I always study things. So I started studying carefully of like, oh, how is it different? Why is it different? And things like that.
Let's talk about that for a second, Jennifer, because you posted on LinkedIn, and I believe it was a couple of days ago, regarding that wage gap. Can you share with us a little bit about, some of the findings of that post?
Well, that one was about how in venture capital, women are struggling to find capital. The percentages are still very low. So here we go from saying that there is a ceiling in corporate. Well, then we go independent and we try to start our firms, and then we're reaching that ceiling again, right? Because most of the investors, unfortunately, the capital investors are male. So who are they going to invest in? Males. And the same is happening in real estate. That's something I noticed when I started getting involved. So I will go to these meetings and to this day, sometimes there's only a handful of us. So we're looking for each other, and we know that we see real estate from a different perspective, right? Like, because as women, we always see things from different perspectives. And I always tell people that that's why I'm so passionate about this, because I feel like it is now, once somebody learns about something, and especially me, I'm like, it's my mission now to show people that there's other ways. There is there's opportunities that we're not seeing because we're so busy, tunnel vision, working on the things that we're working on. That's the thing with women, right? We're hard workers. And so we think that working hard is going to get us noticed, working hard is going to get us promoted, and working hard is going to get us to wealth because we got the promotion. And sometimes we even get the promotion without the money piece, right? Like we get the title, but we don't get the money, the increase is sometimes not equivalent, to that. I mean, I had a friend that was a vice president for a financial company actually, and she discovered that she was getting paid probably 60% of her counterparts, and she had like the same responsibility, same level of education, so it's serious, and it's something that we need to, one of the things that I always tell women is that we need to get better at negotiating for ourselves. We need to, even when we go for that job and we're all excited that we got it, we gotta make sure that we're negotiating, that we're saying, even if it feels like, hey, we might lose the offer, always negotiate. And then when you're promoting yourself for the next level, I was always very clear with my managers, my leaders. I will always tell them, what do I need to do to be promoted? And when I get promoted, I will always negotiate, like, hey, what's a good compensation for the level of responsibility that I'm going to have now? And sometimes I feel like we don't do enough of that. Like, that's so I feel like I want to get on the roof and start preaching.
And I'll be right there with you, Jennifer, because right on point, with especially with regards to the negotiation. And, regardless of how things have been in the past, I think just like you said, now is different. And we have the capability, we have the resources, we have the information to learn how to better negotiate. Because we can say,
Mhm.
I'm not used to that. I don't know how to do that. But just as you said, you learn, right? You
Mhm.
find resources, you start working with, you start learning, investing yourself in getting educated so that you can learn those really important characteristics, like the
Correct.
negotiation skills. Oh
Mhm.
man, I love that because that falls right into the money topic. A lot of my clients, the majority of them are these top performing, high achieving business women, entrepreneurs. And you're right. The thought of the mindset is, okay, I'm working hard, I'm working weekends, I'm working in the evenings, I'm making money. But is that always the smart path for the holistic individual, right? Because we know
Mhm.
about health. I know you're a FITnatics, and we'll get into that later.
Yes.
I know you're very aware of your health and fitness and how that impacts your overall well-being. And I
Mhm.
think that sometimes women who are these high achievers, they get very focused on that. And I feel like not having some of the skill set you said about negotiating and putting yourself out there and asking the questions can sometimes
Mhm.
hold us back, unfortunately.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I
What
think that sometimes we feel guilty because that's part of
mm,
self care too. And I think that as women, because we've been socialized that way, we feel guilty about asking, about taking care of ourselves, making sure that we're being treated fairly. And sometimes we like hesitant, like we just, I don't know, I haven't like found a solution to that problem, but I'll keep learning, and I'll keep, like, that's why I'm always reading books on mindset, books on negotiation, book on why is it, and then sometimes I do some self-reflection and I see, why, like in my case, I came from humble beginnings. So a lot of times my mom was a hard worker, a go-getter, like she got into sales and she was very successful, but a lot of times she was, she wasn't very savvy of how to teach me how to build wealth. She was good at teaching me how to manage what we had because we had to.
mhm.
And so I'm very good at managing my money. So the savings part and the managing part was kind of easy. But then the building wealth was kind of something that she wasn't even taught. And so for me to learn it, I have to pick up books. I have to surround myself with people that are thinking that way and that can teach me. Like, that's why when I go to these guys, I just came back from a conference, and
Yes.
just to be in a room where people are playing at a level that is way higher than you, but that it's like you are just in that environment and you're learning all these things from them or from other people. It's just amazing to me. So I always tell people it's always good to have a good vision of where you want to go, and then based on that vision, surround yourself with the people that are going to get you there, because that's another thing that sometimes we tend to like just hang out with the same type of people, and the negativity and the bad mindset, and that's not going to help you.
Exactly. 100%. And I think that that's something that we forget too. We get so involved in what we're doing, our families, our businesses,
Hmm.
and we do when we want to go to another level, regardless of what that may be, whether it's in business or in finances, it's going to require another level from us, mindset wise, for sure. And I
Hmm.
think that, surrounding yourself with those types of individuals, I'm in agreement with you. Being in a room with individuals that are beyond what you feel that you're at can be so intimidating, Jennifer. Can be very, I mean, speaking from experience, so intimidating. but so worth it. And if we
Yes.
can get past, like you said, a little bit of that mindset block, get a little bit past, like, that's okay. I'm going to be here and I'm going to soak it in because this is the path to where I want to go.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband always, will say to me, like, you're pretty driven, you know where you want to go. And there's really there's only one path sometimes. And what I tell him is that the way I grew up, it was the mindset of there's always a way. There's
Mm-hmm.
always a way. You just have to figure out how to get there. It may not look like everybody else's path, but there's always a way. And I feel that having that sort of a mindset, it's like if I need to be in those rooms, if I need to do XYZ, then those are the steps I need to take because I'm looking at the
Mm-hmm.
big picture, the vision, like you said, the
Yeah.
vision. Yeah.
And then
So
you'd be
strong.
surprised how much those people like, because those people have an abundance mentality. And that's what I love even about this in real estate. I find it a lot. In corporate, I didn't, unfortunately, right? There was a lot of the scarcity mentality, the territorial mentality that if you take some of the knowledge that I have or the responsibilities I have, it might affect me, right? Because now it's like people become very territorial of their jobs.
Yeah.
Uh, when you're in an investing, in a growth, in a wealth type of environment, people realize that money is abundant for all of us. Like we all, it's our birthright, and we just have to find it. And so it's like when you're in those rooms and they're not afraid to share even their lessons, not only what made them successful, but the lessons. And they're just so open to just sharing it all. And it's really up to you to pick up as much as you can and then run from there. Because like, I think it's Tony Robbins that says success leaves clues, right? And it's so true. Like successful
Mhm.
people will tell you. It's amazing how many times I have heard in these conferences that I go to, sometimes when people say nobody has asked me what got me here. Nobody has ever come to me, or you're the first person that comes to me and asks me, how did you get there, what did you do? And sometimes these people are eager to share, but if nobody asks, they're, and so
Mhm.
sometimes they get on stages and they were lucky that they start sharing everything that worked for them, and you're like, wow, like it's amazing. Like to me, I love those type of people, that type of mindset, right? Because it's all about giving. I think we're stewards of what we're provided in life, and so the
Mhm.
more we can just pass it on to people and help people, the better, right? It's like, to me, that's real success.
Amen to that, Jennifer. And 1,000% with that abundance mindset. It's very easy to get caught up in that scarcity
Hmm.
mentality in all aspects of life, not just within money. I teach nutrition as well as mindset and fitness, and even within your nutrition and eating, it's also one of those things where it's very much based on that mindset. Where are
Hmm.
we going? That approach. And so, excellent point with regards to it could be to any aspect of your life, of just ensuring that, hey, you're asking the questions, you're putting in the time, you're keeping that growth mindset. And
Yes.
putting yourself around those individuals, like I said, and I'm going to bring it up again because I think it's very true. Some people feel they don't belong there, or they're not ready for it, or that person's too successful, they don't understand what I'm going through, or they make a lot of money, I just have a very small business, and they're not going to understand. And we start telling ourselves this stuff. And as you probably know, whatever we tell ourselves is more powerful than what anybody else can tell us, because we're
Hmm.
telling ourselves
Yes.
all the time, going. And so it's very important what we tell ourselves, what we share with ourselves, what we tell ourselves. We're successful, we're strong, we can do it, rather than, oh, I'm not sure, I can't, I don't know. And I've
Correct.
I've been on both ends, I've
Hmm.
been on both ends, but as time evolved, having people around me like yourself who are open to share, the knowledge, and not keep it all together, because you're right, that's very corporate. That's a very
Correct.
corporate mentality. So Jennifer, let me ask you this: in your experience dealing with the finances, what have you seen with regards to women specifically, the challenges that they have? Why sometimes do are you seeing that they have a difficult relationship with money?
I think it goes back to our childhood. A lot of times it's like, I think that we have not been part of those conversations.
Mm.
And even the fact that, going back to me loving math, and then that's why I see a connection between engineering and finance and problem solving overall. It's that as women, and that's why there is not a lot of girls that go into STEM. There's not a lot of girls that go into finance. There's not a lot of girls that go into real estate. And you see it in the pictures. Like even when you look at university programs, I always look at that. And, because when I started in engineering, I actually started as a mechanical engineer. And so I was only three, there was only three girls in the whole entire class of 50 plus, right? So
Wow.
it's always, it's kind of like, because we're not expected to do that. It's so sometimes even as little girls, the conversations, the dinner conversations, sometimes your mom has not been part of that conversation. So I think that there is like some taboos and some things sometimes, right? And I
Mhm.
mean, I'm not saying all women are like that. That there's some that are like that, find it harder and they find it overwhelming. And when I was teaching for I taught for 3 years, and then when I was teaching second graders, one of the things that a lot of times I would hear the most girls saying is like, I don't like math. Math is hard. And so the teachers sometimes start saying that same thing. So to me, it's a kind of like that. Like I think it's numbers are intimidating. Then when you start looking at your finances, sometimes we have made mistakes because we're not prepared or educated for it. And
Mhm.
sometimes the shame then kicks in. And
Mhm.
so, like any problem, we tend to avoid facing it because it's like, ugh, once we look at it, we feel it makes us. So it's like it's a combination of the logic of the numbers with the emotions that you feel, about finances. So I
Mhm.
think that it's like it becomes where it's like either you don't feel that you're prepare enough to take control of your finances. And a lot of times we depend, if we're married, we depend on our husband to, oh, my husband is the one that does that. And the ones that were independent enough, sometimes we don't feel like we are, sometimes there's different levels that we reach to. Sometimes I
Mhm.
seen like some of my clients can get stuck. Like they're okay and comfortable, kind of like I was saying about myself earlier, right? The savings wasn't as hard because I grew up having to figure out, be within a
Mhm.
budget. I grew up in a cash environment. Up
Mhm.
until I moved to the States, everything was cash. I didn't know anything about
Mhm.
credit actually. When I moved to the States is when my mom and I started learning about credit. So
Mhm.
for me, cash was like, that's all you have. Like talk about, when you talk about the envelope system and this is like, my mom literally sat down. I actually share this with a group of my partners recently, that my mom literally sat with me with an envelope full of money when I was 6 and divided that envelope in all the little buckets of what she had to pay. And this is how much we have left. I mean, like literally, that was my first financial literacy class, and I didn't know it.
Wow.
And
Mhm.
so throughout that, I started working with my mom, helping her because she did independent sales when I
Mhm.
was 8. So she was teaching me already the skills of like, okay, I have my clientele, but you're gonna offer this service or this product, and I will do my little pitch and sell. So I started very young. So I started like, she will teach me, like, this is how much you made. This is how much you have to pay the company for the products. This is your margin. Like, this is your profit.
Mhm.
And so, like,
Mhm.
so those were things that I am very glad that my mom exposed me to. For me, like, even I will go to the bank and make deposits for her or withdraw money to send to her. Like, I was like a little business person, right? But
Yeah.
not all of us are exposed to that,
Yes.
because sometimes it's like, especially I think we get comfortable. I think that sometimes in finance, we in general, not only women, but men and women, we need to take more ownership. And I think there is a lot of like, we just go with the mainstream advice. Like even people to go into real estate, a lot of people go into the market because
Mhm.
that they're familiar with the stocks.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's what media promotes. That's what you
Mhm.
see on TV. Now, when you look at really, when you study how wealth is made, most of the wealthy people actually, yes, they made it. They have a portfolio that's balanced between stocks and real estate, right?
Mhm.
So sometimes it's like if we don't take the time to educate ourselves in other strategies, then we can get stuck in the ones that we're comfortable or the ones that the mainstream is selling to us.
Yeah. Um, I agree with you. I hadn't thought about it myself in terms of when did I start being exposed to money and bank and deposits and and I'm glad that you mentioned that because I do recall my mom and dad opening up a savings account for me at the bank, and that whole process going to the bank and depositing $5 in the into the account. Oh, that's so funny. I hadn't thought about that in such a long time. But but I guarantee you, Jennifer, a lot of that has stuck with me because I feel not at the highest of the highest levels, but I do have an awareness of money, and I've always had an awareness of responsibilities, um, but never how to grow it. I will say, just like you were saying, just knowing what you have and saving, but never how do I grow it, other than your traditional, well, you work and you make money that way. But as you and I both know, you're going to save some of it, you're going to spend some of it to live. And then what do you do with the rest of it,
Mm-hmm.
and how to work with that. Another thing you mentioned, that I love this, Jennifer, because you're bringing out some great memories from me here, is that, like you said, growing up at starting young at 8, like you said, you were a businesswoman. You were already rocking it out. And I will say that just the other day, I had a conversation with my husband, and it just struck me that when I was young, I used to pretend I was a teacher, and I'd have the kids from the neighborhood, my friends, and I would make them sit down in front, and I would read to them, and I would give assignments. And lo and behold, did I ever know that later on in life that would be my job as a coach. That's my
Mm-hmm.
passion: coaching, mentoring, teaching, educating, as you said, and making that connection. So, you know, that's really significant for all of us to kind of think back when we were young and kind of fun. Like, what did we do? What was our passion? And how did that, flourish as we grew older and into our professions or just into our lives in general? Because that does
Mm-hmm.
say a lot. It will give us a
Yes.
little bit of some clues, as you said, into where are we at now and how we think now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it maybe will not, it's not going to solve anything, but it's good to know where some of these mindset paradigms come from, so that we
Yes.
can, because awareness is everything, right, Jennifer? We
Yes.
can't change what we don't know. So we got to know what's going on so that we can make appropriate adjustments and not just fly by night.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So Jennifer, what do you feel then, with regards to women, is how do we improve that relationship with money?
Education. I think
Education.
it's like an understanding, like become obsessed with studying money.
Mm.
Because it's like I used to actually say when I was in corporate that finance or money was the language of business. I now am starting to realize that it's really the language of life. Because if you think about it, it's almost like I was actually looking at the wheel of wellness, and I
Uh-huh.
think they talk about all the different areas, right? Because I'm also obsessed with being healthy, being fit, and like hey, the years that I have in this world and this earth, I want to make sure they're healthy and the best.
Yeah.
I do not. I even say I hope he takes me before I get to the point that I'm like too weak and frail. Like that, it's time to go. So for me, like so when I just study all these different things, right? So I was looking at that, and I realized that even though finance was one of the the spokes, to me really is the hub. Like because when you think about it, it impacts your relationship, impacts your career, impacts the way you live, impacts the dreams you have. Because sometimes it's like if you only have so much money, like people stop dreaming high enough, right? Like I start thinking like so that's why like for me like when going back to being a child is so important. Like this will be like my number one message to moms especially: do not ever limit the dreams of your child, and always teach him to dream as big as they can. Because if anything, we can always reflect back to that time and say, oh, when I was 7, 8, I wanted to do this. I wanted to do that. And so to me, it's like it's always a good way to making sure you teach them that, it's like it's as far as you can go. And then, yeah, we work towards that. And then life happens, detours happen, yeah, it's just, there's no guarantees. But to me, it's like dreaming big because I saw it in the classroom, and it was actually one of the things that hurt me the most was when I was see because my mom surrounded me with role models. and always stopped me that way, like dreaming big, like look at them, look at how they behave, look at what they do. Of course, I couldn't at that time ask them, how do you become wealthy? But but I did get surrounded by, these were business owners and people that, engineers. So because I told my mom at 7 that I wanted to be an engineer. So she started to, yeah, I know, like I had my whole life figured out. So I,
Apparently.
and then so she would, like, if she had a friend that was an engineer, she would, try to get us to enter. And yeah, she would tell them, hey, my little girl wants to become an engineer, so maybe you can tell her what you do. So my mom was very a very wise woman. But sometimes when I saw it in the classroom was that it was actually the parents that were limiting their children's dreams, because it's almost like, since I couldn't do it, I don't want to teach my kid that they can become something different. And so it was limiting. And I was like, that's so sad. Like, it's like, as parents, our obligation should always be to raise the bar for our kids and push, have them dream big enough that, hey, you're the next level. Like, I always tell my daughter that it's like, you're like, if I got here, you're expected to go here. And,
Mhm.
of course, it's up to her, but at least I'm expanding her thinking, her, her eagerness to at least want to try to get to that.
Very true. I've noticed that, as I shared earlier, that, that mentality that I feel like my dad instilled in me is that, yeah, anything's possible. I went to a private university. I never
Mhm.
thought, that I could do that. I didn't, I was like, this is great. Yes, let's do it. Why can't you? Let's do it. And just the
Mhm.
things that anything was possible, mentally, it does, Jennifer. It makes such a huge difference, because when you're around others that don't have that type of a mindset, and you hear the dialogue, it's just, well, no, you can't do that, or no, that's going to be too hard, oh, that's too expensive, or oh, that's too far. And just
Mhm.
that tells everything. And I think that's very significant, because in life we do have to be aware who we surround ourselves with. Very important. I know we don't always have control of everything, but for the most part we do. And we have
Mhm.
to protect ourselves. We have to protect our mindset, because there are individuals out there that have a different mindset that we do, and can potentially um, take us a different direction if we're not strong in our path and our vision. And
Correct.
so very important is that mindset component. And I think that, as an example, say within a marriage, let's talk about that. When one of the individuals, the wife, may have a very growth mindset, with regards to money, and say the husband comes from a background, well, he's the money person, he's the one. So how do you suggest or recommend some strategies how to work through those situations when you do have a spouse or a significant other that y'all's thoughts on money are not the same?
Yeah, yeah, because I mean, sometimes you have the saver and the spender, or the person that wants to grow their money. And so I think it's very important to have the conversations, even though sometimes they're tough.
Mhm.
And sometimes even the earlier, the better. I actually believe that couples should talk about these things even when they're, thinking about getting married, because it is very important, mindset, the way you think about things and the way you think about money. I mean, I believe that a lot of divorce, and there's probably a lot of research out there that shows that divorces do happen because of finances. And
Mhm.
so I think that it's getting on the same page, right? Because it's like making sure that we both understand. And that's why, like, it's important to have the vision, the goals, and that will bring it together, right? Because if not, you as a couple also starts going in separate ways and, breaking apart. And so to me, it's like, all of those pieces go kind of together. It's like you have to understand what is it that you're trying to accomplish together. Like, sometimes, it's our role could be supportive, or sometimes our role could be that we're the ones that want to do it, right? Like, the roles now can be like before. In the old days, it was more expected that men will be the one that will start the business, men will be the ones that move up the corporate ladder, and we stayed at home taking care of everything else, right? So
Mhm.
now the roles have reversed, or now we have things as the power couples, right? And so to me, it's important to understand the type of person that you are. Talk about your dreams, your goals. What are you trying to accomplish? It's like sometimes it could be that the other person is too money driven, or like, they finding, for example, for me, I grew up thinking sometimes that it was kind of, money was necessary, but at the same time, if accumulating money was like a sin, right? Like it was not, like it was not good, like it like. And so to me it was like, no, it's not money that's the problem, it's what you do with the money, right? So it's the same like with couples understanding why they want the money, why they want to save. Because sometimes I hear, for example, that, oh, my husband wants me to save because he wants to start a business, or like, well, then the disconnect is not the money, it's the fact that he wants to start a business and you don't understand his why, so you don't know how that's helping the entire family. You're now kind of working in a way against it or are resentful, but it's because you don't understand his goal. And vice versa, it could be the woman, right? In our cases, like, we're independent, we want to, and our husbands could be the ones that are supporting us, like my husband, and he's very, like, into his career. He like did not wanted to go do real estate right away, but he supports me. See, he sat in the classes, my initial classes, when I started learning about real estate investing, because I told him, I was like, I want you to at least understand what I'm doing, so when I do it, you don't get nervous, because it will involve money, it will embed investments, and I want you to at least be on board and say, she knows what she's doing. Like, she's studying this, she's like, making sure she's doing her due diligence, all of that. Like, he doesn't have to do it yet, but at the same time, it's like he needs to understand it. He needs to understand what is it that, I'm doing, so he can support me. And
Yeah.
that, to me, that's important, like, to understand, our own whys and why we're doing something. And it should be for the family. I mean, you typically, if you're married, you will
Mhm.
work on that. Like, if it's a marriage, then you are going to be working for something that's good for both of you, or even you and the kids, right?
Well said, Jennifer. I guess it was a little bit more than 10 years ago when I was working and my area got downsized. And so I was let go. And that was a big turning point for me, and thinking, like, what am I going to do next? Am I going to go work for somebody else again? The sky's the limit, right? Because I had that mentality. I didn't think, oh, I'm just going to go another job. So I thought about it, but also having those conversations with my spouse, like, what are your thoughts? If I do
Mm-hmm.
start a business, as you know, or maybe you don't know, it's going to need money. It's going to take time to make a profit. So, having those difficult conversations, but knowing that, hey, if we talk about it, doesn't mean that everything's going to work out perfectly, but we have, like you said, Jennifer, an understanding of one another,
Mm-hmm.
so we can support each other. And so when there's like, well, wait a minute, I thought you started a business, what happened to the money? It's like, well, wait a minute, didn't we, wasn't there an understanding that we talk, it's going to take some time. So when you're
Mm-hmm.
on the same page, it just makes things so much better. But of course, you and I know, Jennifer, that's not always the case, and people are going to stay, unfortunately, the way they think, and not have an open mindset, which is very unfortunate. But I think that's like what you said early on. Hey, let's talk
Yes.
about money. Where do you stand on money? What are your thoughts on that? How do you value it? Because as you said,
Mm-hmm.
it's the mindset. A dollar's a dollar. But someone who doesn't have any money may think, oh my God, that is just so much. But someone who's a billionaire might not even consider it anything. So
Correct.
it's always going to come back to that mindset and how
Yes.
we think about money. Now, with that being said, Jennifer, the climate right now, inflation,
Mm-hmm.
things are going up left and right, from restaurants, insurance, gas, you name it.
Yes.
How do we, maintain a healthy relationship with money during these types of times?
I think it's being realistic, realistic with you, like really going back to the, and I know that a lot of families hate this, like going back to your budget and really managing, like what's
Mm.
coming in and how am I spending it and what's going out, because that's where we start getting into cash flow problems, right? Like if we don't understand, we're just spending, because especially like, so when there is you lose a job, or there's a change, or your business, if you're a business owner and business, is not doing as well as it used to, you have to readjust. So to me, that's where like people need to be adaptable and be quick, too, and like realizing, okay, there's changes, and what can I do to manage them and be proactive versus waiting until later, and it's like more of a reactive thing. But it's never too late to start paying attention to it. It's like, to me, it's very important to start like looking at it, whether you might see a lot of red, when you're trying to balance things, and you might see things that you don't like, but the sooner you see them, the sooner you can start working on, hey, if it's cash flow, you need to go maybe get another job, or get it something, set up something that bring that income stream to subsidize, if you want to keep the same standard of living. Or if it's, if it's other problems, it's like you can even look at your business. Like sometimes I find that business owners, we're managing, because when a lot of business is coming in, you're managing your business differently, and it kind of applies to life too, right? Like, hey, we're
Yeah.
making good money. Like, it's kind of interesting how we have families that are making six figures, both like, partners, and they're still living paycheck to paycheck. So making more money doesn't always equal, you know having more money. It's like a lot of times people will make it and spend it. So to me, like, when you are at a point where you have to pivot, where because of some change, then you have to realize that it's like, if I want to sustain that lifestyle, I have to do something different and supplement it with something. Or if I can, or I don't want to, then you have to kind of, bring back some of the expenses that because it's cash in, cash out. So yeah, it's just kind of being very real with your current situation, and really balancing things, and understanding that sometimes, you just have to change, that lifestyle. I mean, I've been to transitions. I went from engineering to teaching, and then back to engineering. And during those transitions, there's sacrifices I've had to make. I went from a consulting job where I was, young, I was making great money, I had my condo, my luxury little, sports car. Then, I got married, had my baby, I was teaching, so my salary was half of what it used to be. But I made that decision, right? I was trying to, for me, it was part of me giving back. I wanted to give back to the world and work with children. Realize that the system doesn't really allow you much to do. So my promise was actually to do what I love, and then come back and influence children, like go speak to, in schools, and like help them, even financial education. It like provides a great vehicle for me to go talk to kids about that. So I know I'm going back to the classroom, just in a different way, right?
Yeah.
But when I did, it was like my income was reduced significantly, so my lifestyle had to change. But it was okay, because I was doing something at the time. I thought it was, the right decision, but I still had to provide for my little girl. I had to take care of her. Then when I went back to engineering, I was making a lot more. What did I do? I kept the same lifestyle. I tried to keep as much of the same lifestyle, because now it's like, I was able to be fine before. Yeah, maybe now I can have little luxuries here and there, but why can't I take that money, and instead of spending it, invest it or save it? So I was maxing out at the time my 401ks, giving as much as matching, so that my employer will match. I was like trying to, like, learn of how to, like, even when I remember I moved my money from my retirement account as a teacher to when I went to corporate, and I was able to buy the stocks of that company, the one that I had joined, at
Uh-huh.
like a discount. It had gone like the lowest. And then, but my hiring manager, we were talking about it, and he's like, we sat down and we looked at it, and it was like, yeah, you should put it all in that company. I was like, okay, we're not gonna trust this decision. And then it went up, 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 and I was able to significantly, like, like increase my. And it was just like, yeah, see, it was like me surrounding myself with somebody that understood that. And then the fact that we were just talking like peers, and then I also made the decision and took the risk, right? Because at the end of the day, it was my money, not his money. But
That's
I was
true.
able to learn, and he was able to explain to me why he thought that was a good decision, and he had made it himself. So I was like, you know what? I'll do the same.
Mhm.
And went, and it proved to be, profitable, and it was great. So things like that, to me, it's like you have to always assess where you are, be mindful of how much is going out, and yeah, being very responsible about that.
I think the key is what we're both trying to say here, Jennifer, comes down to, and I love how you said it, is just be real. Is we have to, and That's something I felt learned early in life, and I can look in the mirror and I can identify, my weaknesses just as well as I can identify my strengths. And it's okay,
Hmm.
like you said.
Yes.
It's okay. We all have weaknesses and we all have strengths. But when we can be real, look at the numbers, as you said, there might be a lot of red there. And I know for a fact that, there's many individuals, and we know the term, you stick your head in the sand
Hmm.
and we'll see what happens. I
And
think that
that's the
happens.
worst you can do.
Exactly, ladies. That is the worst you can do. So whatever it is, and I love how you said it too, it's never too late. Start looking at the
Hmm.
numbers. And that takes me to my next question, Jennifer, is you said one of the biggest things that strategies that you can give or share with women is to get educated. Tell us how can we, or what are some ideas, suggestions, or tips for getting educated with when it comes to our finances?
I read a lot of books, listen to a lot of like podcasts on money, investing. Whether it's in the stock market, whether it's sometimes even options or real estate. To me, it's like whatever. I do agree with the philosophy that you should invest in what you know, like what you understand. So, for example, a lot of people I talk about a lot about crypto, right? Like, and some people are doing well, and I always tell them, like, when they ask me, it's like, oh, do you want to invest in that? And I'm like, at the moment, no. Maybe in the future, but right now, I haven't taken the time to really study it and understand it in order for me to put my money, my hard-earned money, into something that I don't understand. So to me, education, and there is plenty, depending on what is it that you're trying to learn. There is plenty of like podcasts and resources that you can go to that just help you understand how money works, because I feel that we've been stuck in this rat race of we work for money. We're working on that one book that I recommend a lot of times, and not because it teaches you so much about real estate, but it
Mhm.
teaches you about the mindset of money. It's Rich Dad Poor Dad. And because
Yes.
for me it was like, took that, like, that employee mindset, and kind of teaching you the quadrants and the difference between, even when you go be self-employed, you're still depending on your money, because sometimes I talk to business owners where they're the business. If something happens to them, there's no business, because nobody else can jump in and do what they do. They're the consultant, they're the expert, they're the ones that know it all. So then, okay, so what can we do to scale your business? Then now you have systems that start replicating what you do. And this is what actually a lot of the young people are beating us on, because like you are doing courses and YouTube channels, and you could be sleeping and you could be creating an
Mhm.
income stream, right? So it's
Mhm.
like kind of switching to that mindset, and then eventually to the passive investing, right, where your money is working for you. So to me, that's the critical piece, understanding the difference. And
Mhm.
so that's a great book to start.
Right.
I know that sometimes people, because he is very vocal about different things and can say that I don't follow all his stuff, but that
Mhm.
first book to me was a great book that I still recommend to this day, about how the mindset of money works.
My husband was actually the one that told me about that book many, many years ago and
Uh-huh.
introduced me to it. And I agree with you 100%. And it was even, as a result of that, because my husband grew up, working with his mom at different times, and she's a business owner, independent business owner, entrepreneur. So
Mm-hmm.
he was exposed to it way before I started doing what I did. So he was very supportive and had a more of awareness. And he would
Mm-hmm.
say the term mailbox. And for the longest, I was
Mailbox
like, "What
money.
is?"
Uh-huh. Yep.
I was like, "What is mailbox money?" And he's like, "Well, that's," and there you explain the whole thing. So share with us, Jennifer, what does mailbox mean in the financial world?
In simple terms, is when you invest your money in a real estate asset, and then you get quarterly or monthly distributions, and so then your investment is passively working, and then you're getting your mailbox money every month or every quarter. And I
Oh yeah,
love my mailbox money.
yeah. Great. Yes, Jennifer. So how, if someone is looking to start looking at those numbers, and as scary as it may be, or they don't know where to start, how can they work with you to start that process? What would that look like? How do we how do we
Yeah,
get to work with
usually I'll set up like an initial session where we
you?
talk about. It's just kind of I get to know, because for me, like, it's very important to get to know the person, get to know, where they are, what their needs are, what their goals are, and then based on that we can determine, even if we can work together. And then I do like a longer strategy session where we
Okay.
talk about more in detail, like when we really look at the numbers, look at, the different areas of in financing that you need to be looking at, because sometimes we're just looking at our bank account, or we're just looking at our investments. But like, if you look at a financial house, it's like I tell investors when I work with them, I'm like, you will never start building a house and start with the roof, right? Or even when you're rehabbing a house, you wouldn't fix the roof. You would look at the foundation first, right? So,
Mhm.
like, that to me is very important, like making sure that we have the right foundation, that we're like kind of building for the long term versus building with a bunch of cracks.
Yeah.
So that to me, it's like the initial thing, like, just kind of having that initial discussion. And then if they're comfortable and they really do want to like work, long term with me, then we'll look at more like the detail on how they're doing, what they need to, like all the different needs that they might have. And
Mhm.
so put together, something that they can then work from there. I mean,
And
ideally, I will eventually want them to invest in real estate, if because that's the area that I'm familiar with. But I also have partnered with a full service brokerage that we can offer anything. Like, it doesn't have to be real estate.
excellent. And I will definitely share your contact information in the show notes so people can reach out to you and set up that initial financial checkup
Yes.
with you, Jennifer. Thank you. Now, last question here is the best one. And Jennifer, I already know the answer though. Are you a FITnatics? And if so, how do you stay fit and healthy?
I work out every morning. I do cardio with my husband. Actually, that's something that we started, and then we've been like, we're each other accountability partners, and so we wake up every morning and we always start our day with exercise. So it's been awesome. I love it. And the one
Wow.
thing I do need to do more is weights, because as you know, weights are very good, especially as we age. So I need to incorporate more weight training.
There you go. Okay. All right. So now you know, right, Jennifer? Now you know. Strength training. We're
Yes.
going to add, I don't know how long you do your cardio for, but maybe you can cut a little bit of that time and do maybe about 5 to 10 minutes of some strength training.
Yes.
All righty. All righty, guys. I want to thank Jennifer so much for this valuable conversation and information. And once again, I will share Jennifer's contact information in the show notes for today. Thank you, Jennifer, for very, very much. And I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Until next time, keep moving.